How's it going, everybody? Raggroth here. So Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi 3 had a lot of characters back in the day, but it didn't have everybody. So there were maybe not a lot, there were some cool characters that did miss the cut in Tenkaichi 3, and also some that were introduced after the game came out, but before Dragon Ball Super was a thing, or just maybe don't really fit under the Dragon Ball Super umbrella. I wanted to talk about some characters that I would like to see actually make a grand entrance or re-entrance in some cases in Tenkaichi 4 when it comes out. So let's get started.
Number 10.
Kakarot!
So Super Saiyan 3 Broly made a debut, I believe, in Dragon Ball Heroes, or back maybe when it was called like Cardass or something like that, some name like that. And basically he kind of made a more mainstream appearance in Raging Blast. He was kind of one of the few sort of things that game had that Tenkaichi 3 didn't, at least in terms of roster. Now, I don't really know what the general reception to him was, honestly. I'm a Broly fan as well as a huge Super Saiyan 3 fan, so I was totally fine with this. What might be kind of a better way to kind of make it stand out a bit more is if they use kind of the God form of Broly from that like 4D movie or whatever that was called. I think that had like a version, like it was kind of Gogeta, but it wasn't Gogeta. More just for this video, just for sake of easiness or sake of convenience, is talking about Super Saiyan 3 Broly. He had some sort of unique moves. He had like kind of a double eraser blaster, double giant blaster, whatever his standard kind of move is called. And they gave his ultimate wasn't really unique to that form. It was actually something they just gave. It was something that he used against Piccolo in the first Broly movie, which was a cool move, admittedly. I don't really have much to say here. It'd be cool to see this form come back for Broly, especially kind of if they're going to take things that maybe didn't make in Tenkaichi 3 but made in some of Spike's other games. I personally think it has very little chance, especially with how little love Super Saiyan 3 gets these days. But hey, I can dream. And again, it probably wouldn't make base roster. It'd probably be like kind of an extra DLC character or something like that.
Number 9.
Go, it's time to fight!
So staying in line with what if Super Saiyan 3 forms introduced in other Spike games, Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta was also kind of the same boat as Super Saiyan 3 Broly, where I believe it was introduced in an earlier version of Dragon Ball Heroes, and then it made it made its way to the Raging Blast games. Now this is a little bit of a bigger deal than Broly getting one, just because I think it still bothers me, and I feel like some other people, that Vegeta kind of just skipped over Super Saiyan 3. He never got it. That's why he's a little higher on the list. I think him getting Super Saiyan 3 I think is a bigger deal than Broly getting it, basically. And just for completion's sake, it would be great to have it. I think it's now the only form I guess he's skipped in. I don't use the word canon, but I guess in the actual animated series, we'll put it that way. And I do know, I think they gave him a move that I think he used against like second form Cell. It was like a Big Bang, like kind of rush down move. And they did, interestingly enough, his ultimate was just called Gallic Gun, but it was an orange Gallic Gun, which he's never done before, and it's just weird. I don't know why they didn't give it another name, like Ultra Gallic Gun, Final Gallic Gun, Omega Gallic Gun, Super Gallic, or I guess Super Gallic Gun's already taken, or like Burning Gallic Gun, Atomic Gallic Gun, something like that. That was one thing that just kind of nitpicked. I mean, I know it's just a beam move, and I shouldn't make that big a deal, but it was a nitpick I had. But yeah, this is basically just kind of copy and paste what I'm saying about Super Saiyan 3 Broly, but apply to Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta. I would say maybe he's like a smidge more likely just because it's Vegeta, but not much.
Number 8.
Android 14 was a character that I think I was a little frustrated never made in Tenkaichi games. He was, I think, one of the cooler movie henchmen from all the henchmen in the movie the movie villains had. I always just really liked his design, his sort of he's kind of like a quiet berserker, unlike someone like Broly. And his moveset in Raging Blast 2 was pretty cool from what I remember. And yeah, so basically the only time he's really playable, at least in a fighting game, is Raging Blast 2. Raging Blast 2 was a big deal for movie characters, adding some characters from movies that were never really playable much. And Android 14 was one of them. Now, what do I think his chances are? Pretty damn low, especially because he still hasn't even made it in the Xenoverse 2, for God's sakes. But again, like, hey, if the game gets supported for a while and they want to add some movie characters, you gotta at least consider the possibility they'd add him.
Number 7.
ついにこの時が来た。
So Demigra is a villain that debuted in the Xenoverse games. He's only in Xenoverse 1. I don't believe he's in Xenoverse 2. I could be wrong about that, though. And it always kind of bothered me that he was never really playable. I don't really think he has the coolest design ever, and I don't think they really gave him that crazy of a moveset, but it still just kind of bothered me. And it would be nice to kind of see some Xenoverse exclusive stuff make it over to Tenkaichi, and hey, why not Demigra? Now, he did have another form, I think, in the Dragon Ball Heroes games, which kind of resembled... It gave me more like Kid Buu vibes, which I actually think is a bit cooler looking. However, the first base Demigra form is probably already very unlikely, so I don't know about this form would have a chance. And we know he does have the monster form that was like the last boss in the first Xenoverse game, which I was never really that crazy about the design, to be honest. But yeah, I think if there was a Xenoverse exclusive pack, I think Demigra, like a DLC pack, I think Demigra would actually have a good shot. Base roster, probably not, though. It's going to be a common theme of this video.
Number 6.
You're pretty sharp. It must have been you snooping around. I hope you weren't thinking of interfering. That'd be a mistake.
Alright, so sticking in the line with Xenoverse exclusives, well, actually more of a Dragon Ball line exclusive, is Toa, one of the main villains of that game. Now, I think Toa is hands down one of the coolest female characters in all of Dragon Ball, and it's really a shame she's just kind of relegated to video games and not really the main stuff. But I mean, it's, you know, not that I mind because you actually get to play as her. Now, the only problem with Toa is that, I mean, her moveset in like Xenoverse is kind of eh. She's more of kind of the brains and kind of support character as opposed to the brawn fighting character. That's not to say she couldn't have a cool moveset though. Not to mention, I do believe she has a super form or something like that, and maybe I'm not super, no pun intended, I'm not super familiar with what she can do differently in that form. Maybe she could do a bit more. I would say to have that form, I think probably her base form is probably more likely, if anything, just because that's the one that is more well-known and established to the general public. But again, I think she's more likely than Demigra. But again, it probably, if she was like in the game, probably DLC and probably a Xenoverse exclusive pack, or maybe a like a Femme Fatale pack or something like that.
Number 5.
A costly mistake. I will eliminate you here and now.
So once again, another Xenoverse character, or Dragon Ball Online character, Mira. Mira is Toa's husband, I believe, and he's an android created in hell. Not that I haven't heard that before, but he's basically like Cell, but if he was made in hell. And he's hands down my favorite of the 3 kind of major, or I guess 4 if you want to count Fu, major Xenoverse Dragon Ball Online exclusive villains. I just think he's a really cool villain, really cool design. I like playing as him here and there. Now the main issue, or not really issue, but the main thing that kind of bugged me, in Xenoverse 2 he actually got a powered up form that I thought looked really cool. Admittedly, that might be a hot take. I liked it because it kind of looked like a white-haired Super Saiyan 4 kind of form, and it was never made playable. I'm like, what the hell? Now, of course, maybe it could be made playable at the very end of Xenoverse 2's lifespan. I don't know when all that's going to be. But yeah, as of now, it's not playable. And it'd be great to have this form playable in a game. Now, honestly, again, Mira's chances are pretty damn low. He actually has another super form too in Dragon Ball Heroes. I'm not as crazy about that form though, in all honesty. Now, honestly, his chances are pretty low. However, I would say out of the 3 Xenoverse villains, he might be most likely just because, again, he's more prominent than Demigra, but he's also more of a fighter than Toa. But yeah, if he's making the game, it's going to be like a Xenoverse exclusive DLC character pack. But Mira would definitely be my favorite of the kind of Demon Realm exclusive Xenoverse villains to make in the game. And those that think he'd just be a clone, well, his last variation in the Xenoverse games, he does have mainly unique moves. He has his own unique ultimate called Serious Bomb, which the name is funny, but I actually really like the ultimate. So he could easily have his own moves, and I could see them translating for the most part pretty well into the Tenkaichi games.
Number 4.
What?
So for this one, I basically just want to see the Super Saiyan forms of Bardock. I ideally would like him to go to Super Saiyan 3. I do think that one is lesser likely because, again, that one kind of debuted in like Dragon Ball Heroes and Xenoverse, while Super Saiyan Bardock actually debuted in an actual animated film, or at least an OVA, where he basically went back in time and fought Frieza's ancestor, Chilled. And this was a big deal for me because I always loved Bardock. It's just a shame that he kind of, as a Saiyan, he only had one form, but he finally got a Super Saiyan form, and it was awesome. Now, admittedly, I think what you could probably do to differentiate him from regular Bardock is give him some of the moves that he used against Chilled in that movie. Hell, even he is technically in Fighterz. It's just only as an ultimate. Super Saiyan 3 Bardock, again, I mean, he didn't really get that many unique moves, so that's another reason I don't know if they did put him in, what the hell they'd make him do. But again, I can dream. Now, as for his likeliness, I think Super Saiyan Bardock actually might be kind of likely. Because I think if Bardock's making the base roster, Super Saiyan Bardock has a shot. Not a super great one, but definitely I think probably one of the more likelier characters on this list. Super Saiyan 3 Bardock, I think no way in hell. Again, unless they do like an exclusive Xenoverse pack and maybe he's part of it or something like that.
Number 3.
So Hachiyak is kind of like one of the was like a forgotten movie villain. I honestly forget about him sometimes too. Basically, he was from an OVA that was part of some like arcade game that came out in Japan, and he was never really that heard of much in America. But then Raging Blast 2 he was sort of the big sort of highlight of that game. That game was like that game was like Movie Villains Day Out or something like that. Which, hey, I loved. That's one of the things I liked about Raging Blast 2. It even came with a kind of redone version of that OVA that was a part of the game. I think you actually unlocked Hachiyak by watching that, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. It's been a while. It was just a bummer that it wasn't dubbed in English. But I think Hachiyak's a pretty cool villain. I really like playing as the Raging Blast 2. I think he had a pretty cool moveset. He's got a pretty cool design. He's kind of like a more like a cybernetic or I guess sci-fi version of Janemba, at least in my opinion. He's got a pretty cool moveset that I think has already been in the Tenkaichi games. It could definitely translate well to a new game. But there's really no problem there. I know people probably don't really like him much because he doesn't really have much of a personality. He's basically just Nemesis from Resident Evil, but instead of pursuing Stars members, he's pursuing Saiyans. But I think Hachiyak does deserve another shot in a Tenkaichi game. Now his chances, Hachiyak hasn't even made in Xenoverse 2, so I can't see his chances being really that great. Admittedly, again, he'd probably be a DLC character. I know he even has, like, I think a super form or something that was, like, in an extended version of the game or something like that. I mean, it'd probably just be his base form.
Number 2.
I'll move so I can get back to work. Until then, hold this for me.
Now, Ice Shenron is a character, one of the few characters I was definitely very frustrated didn't make it into Tenkaichi 3. I felt like he was so close with Nova making it in and Nova's alternate being some kind of discount Ice Shenron color or something like that. I always did think Ice Shenron was cool, no pun intended. Admittedly, I do like Nova better. But, I mean, again, we don't really have a character that has an elemental focus on ice. And it's just annoying because one of the main villains literally has an ice-themed name and has an ice-themed family names. This really makes Ice Shenron stand out and pretty unique. He's kind of a dirty fighter, unlike Nova, who's very honorable. So that's something I work on, too. I mean, the moves are there. It's like you have his Ice Beam, you have the claw moves, you have his kind of his Mega Man arm cannon, Ice Blast, something like that. His moveset's definitely there. Hell, you could do what Xenoverse did, and you can kind of make his moves, his least basic combos, just kind of a reskin of what Nova does. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to complain. Now, again, he's a character that I cannot really see making the base roster, especially because between the two, Nova is probably always going to be a priority. Granted, Xenoverse did kind of make him and Nova kind of equal. They were both added at the same time, but in a different company, and I think they just kind of wanted to have characters that were really never playable in a Dimps game before. And they had kind of a priority for GT back then. We didn't have Super, so GT was able to get a little bit more love. But yeah, it would really be nice for Ice Shenron to actually make a Tenkaichi game for once. But I guess we'll see.
Number 1.
I'm a little reluctant to fight.
So if you play Dragon Ball Fighterz, you probably know Android 21. In my opinion, she is probably the coolest Dragon Ball female, and hey, she can actually, she has a pretty cool, and she's actually a fighter as well. This was a big deal for me when she was added in Fighterz, because I always really liked the androids growing up, and it was really exciting to actually get a new numbered android, and it being, and then that character being very important to the story. And her moveset's awesome as well. Now, in terms of which version of 21, while I like both, gun to my head, I would prefer it be kind of the regular humanoid lab coat version. I like the more modern form, don't get me wrong, but the reason Android 21 was so exciting to me was just because it was cool getting a new android, but when we just kind of saw the playable version was just kind of this pink skin sort of Majin character, it just kind of felt like we were getting a new Majin Buu character. And I mean, hey, that's not bad either, but I was more excited about getting a new android. And I feel like this would probably be the version they would pick too. I mean, it is the version that made it in Xenoverse 2 for that matter, and I should address, like, people are like, oh, but you know, they want to take another character from another game. It's like, Xenoverse 2 already did that. Not to mention, technically, she is in the anime. Technically. You actually see her, at least the human version of her, I believe her name's Komi, in the family tree, the Gero family tree. You see her in the Dragon Ball superhero movie. And she's made by Akira Toriyama, so she is, at least, she's on the borderline of being canon, we'll put it that way. Even still, though, I can't see her making the base roster. Maybe, like, just maybe if they want to throw some curveballs in there, maybe she'd be a good pre-order character, something like that. Actually, I think she'd be a pretty smart pre-order character. Kind of like what Tekken 7 did with Eliza being the pre-order character, basically. But I think as a DLC character, she is fairly likely. You know, again, if they do kind of another, like, a game or miscellaneous DLC character pack, I think she has a pretty good chance. Again, more so probably the lab code version, but maybe both can make the game.
This is what happens when you get in my way.
Android 21! Win!
And that's all for my list. Don't really got much more to say there. I didn't think really honorable mentions was really worth it for kind of this sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel. Not that it's really the bottom of the barrel, but you get what I'm saying, kind of list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially with these more kind of obscure, out there characters that can make in Tenkaichi 4. I cannot talk right, I'm sorry. I mean, I know it's like none of them are probably much of a chance, but I still think it's fun to talk about. Fun to at least consider the idea that they could throw some curveballs in the main roster. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like the video if you like it, dislike it or dislike it. Definitely consider subscribing if you like this video and some of my others. It would really help the channel out a lot. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and as I always say, another time, another place. Keep being awesome.